Why aren't more people talking about Limbus Company by KwestaShul? Now, this was a Patreon submission. I personally have not heard of Limbus Company. I'm not really sure what the situation is. So hopefully this is a video which kind of encapsulates, one, what Limbus Company is, two, what the argument for it is, and three, kind of outlines some of the struggles on why it isn't talked about more. Without further ado.
Limbus Company, you are better than a well-beloved, because... wait, do you hear that? It sounds like... oh, God. I haven't even started the video yet!
관리자. 나리!
Interesting.
I've only recently been indoctrinated into the cult of Project Moon, thanks to a little game known as Limbus Company, that has since extended to Library of Rowena and as much of Lobotomy Corporation as my mental can handle, because what the fuck even is going on at this point? For the last 6 or so months, it's no exaggeration to say that I've fallen in love with these games. The world, the story, the characters, and the overall feeling of having a gacha game elicit actual emotion out of me. Something other gacha games could only wish they could do.
Right.
The world is lived in, dark, sick, and bereft of human righteousness. The characters are their own, capable of growth that persists and never truly feel cast to the wayside. The main character is not overtly a self-insert, experiences their own growth and has their own massive flaws that matter, and isn't treated as a hyper-competent do-it-all that everyone revolves around. I like how I'm not treated as though I'm an imbecile needing to understand bosses or get a grasp on unit kit synergies. I like the team building, I like the constant curiosity the dialogue breeds, I like how the universe's concepts are easy to understand and not bogged down by a bad case of nounitis. But most of all, I like how the gacha game doesn't really feel like a gacha game. And yet, between all those thoughts, I can't help but wonder why more people aren't talking about Limbus Company.
So I think this is actually a very interesting one because I've brought this up before, right? Take a game like, not Dwarf Fortress, what's the other one? Rock and Stone. Deep Rock Galactic, right? A game which, as far as I'm aware, has kind of been universally, like, loved and acknowledged, and people say this is an example of a game, you know, doing things right? Like, when it comes to their, you know, their battle pass, season pass philosophy, and things rotating into the base game, things feeling good, updates feeling good, right? And yeah, we hear people playing Deep Rock Galactic. Don't get me wrong, absolutely. But how often does Deep Rock Galactic or another similar game in regards to a game that really receives universal praise, how often is it that those specific games kind of just fall to the wayside as people return to the Destiny 2s, as people return to the Call of Duties, the Battlefields for the past several years, right? Games that people struggle to put to words why they still play the game, especially when it very clearly is stressful for them. Like, the amount of people who say that they pick up the finals, right? And, you know, they'll have some fun in an update, and then the finals does something that it bricks the game. Well, it's not necessarily bricking the game, right? But, like, that does something, and then they're just like, cool, we'll see it next update, right? Or something like League of Legends, where people are just notoriously salty and toxic, right? But then you go, okay, but you clearly like a game like Deep Rock Galactic. So why would you go back to that? And that's been a talking point I've had for about a year now. The way I've had a buddy kind of describe it is like, you have two cars. One's like a Lambo, very, very luxury car. And then another is kind of this, you know, car that requires a little bit more maintenance, even percussive maintenance, right? And you really like this Lambo. You really like your luxury car. And you'll look at it. Maybe you'll pat the hood and you'll go, okay, I like you. And then you'll go back to, you know, percussive maintenance on this other car trying to fix it, right? And that was kind of an interesting point that was brought up. So I wonder, and this encapsulates, this all had a point, I promise, right? This all encapsulates in the point of, even if this game does everything correctly, I wonder if it hits those same notes of, because the game isn't actively stressing people out, and because the game is, admission of the original creator here, a good product, right? I wonder if that's why people don't talk about it more or engage with it more. Just a thought.
Project Moon is a relatively small indie game company based in South Korea, consisting of around 50 employees. Their repertoire consists of Hell on Earth, Peak Cinema, and the worst of the three, apparently. It's not hard to get the idea that they really came from nothing, as it were, with Lobotomy Corporation looking like it had the budget of 5 cents and a bowl of lint, which was kind of the case because it was originally a failed Kickstarter game. Lobotomy Corp was marketed as an SCP-inspired monster management simulator, garnering around $3.3 thousand of the initially proposed $40,000 goal with its small demo. And for most people, well, that'd be that. No funding means no development, which should have meant no game. But my cute CEO, Kim Ji-hoon, said no, I don't think that's the case, and ended up tirelessly working with the feedback given to them, incorporating the limitations put forward by the game engine and lacking art assets into the story itself, so there was at least a reason for it. What the game lacked in visual interface ingenuity, they made up for with gameplay and story ingenuity. Kim Ji-hoon and his buddies from the anime club would make this game Kickstarter be damned.
I respect it.
A steaming pile of dog shit. Because for all the violet midnights and low-key softlock abnormality combinations you can unfortunately stumble upon, Lobotomy Corporation was a wonderfully thought-out game that introduces the beloved concepts of the PM-verse and spurred on the creation of Project Moon's other more well-crafted titles. Concepts like the setting of the city, a complete dystopia lacking in humanity, or perhaps is poisoned by it. After all, only those deemed human may preside within its walls. It's like Disneyland for psychopaths and sociopaths and empaths, capitalists, nihilists, cannibals, and fucking clowns. One hell of a place to take up the art of comedy. But Lobotomy Corporation plants the seed, pun intended, that even in a place as utterly wretched as this, hope can be just around the corner, grown within the very people that seem so clearly woeful. And goddamn did that game sell. The tagline of an SCP management game really worked wonders, turning some pretty large heads around. And I can't even really name another game that has that same premise. Does My Singing Monsters count? Also, don't play the game unless you hate yourself. It's like 150 hours of pure unadulterated pain. The direct sequel to Lobotomy Corporation, I
mean, to be fair, I've spent how much time playing Destiny 2? Getting to where I am on Raid Report. I say that, but I actually enjoy raiding. Like, here's the thing. Like, I feel in certain ways, like, a lot of gamers will do things, like piggybacking off the conversation earlier, right? We'll do things that are detrimental to ourselves, right? Like playing a game, like a PvP game, because like we really want to like play the finals. We really want to play like Halo Infinite. We really want to play like Crucible or like, dare I say, Trials of Osiris, right? Despite it's like when someone asks, why do you play the game, right? Why do you play this? It clearly is making you frustrated. It's clearly making you upset. And there's not really a response. There's almost like an obligation, right? Like we as gamers, I feel, have some very like self-loathing habits. And that being said, like it is your choice. You're an adult at the end of the day. If you want to play Trials of Osiris and completely get effed out of flawless multiple times by cheaters and carries, which carries, as last I understood, were against Bungie TOS, right? Like you do have the opportunity and the ability to say, no, I'm gonna go play Trials of Osiris. No, I'm gonna go play League of Legends, right? You can do that, but I think that the question comes down to what is your cost-benefit analysis of the game? What are you getting from the game that keeps you coming back, right? Clearly showcased here, right? There's a lot of depth to this. There's a lot of themes that are tackled, right? Absolutely. So you can see why people latch on to games like this. To me, this feels like a game people would play. They would play for the time they deem should be invested in the game. They'll feel good about it. And then they'll just go back to something like League of Legends, or they'll go back to something like Call of Duty. They'll go back to something like Destiny 2, right? They'll go back to games that will inherently not treat their time well and even frustrate them. So that phenomena is very fascinating to watch unfold, where we'll go from something that feels like it respects and treats our time well, right? Like me in Warframe, and then going back to things that don't feel like they treat and respect our time well. I don't know. I can't even say that I really do that because like, I guess maybe Pokemon, maybe. But like, I don't know. I come from an era of just like, I don't want to do something, I'll just not do it. Like, I'll say I'm not going to play Helldivers again for any number of reasons, and I just don't play Helldivers 2 again, right? I'll spend my time on things that I feel are infinitely worth my time more. And I think that a lot more people need to feel empowered to make that decision.
Riverina was an excuse to develop the strongest part of the previous title, the world itself. It very much helps that the main two protagonists are a clueless sentient robot who wishes to learn more about the city, and a denizen of the city who knows its ins and outs perhaps a little too intimately. Its gameplay loop, a deck-building, turn-based RPG system with some RNG sprinkled in, allowed for a multifaceted experience many people loved. loved so much they made it the monetization model of their next game, but we'll get to that. Library of Arena wasn't as popular as Lobotomy Corporation despite it being a massive step up for the company. That's not to say it didn't do well, it did. Simply the premise wasn't as immediately interesting as something so clearly as inspired as its predecessor. People who played the game more than likely came from Lobotomy Corp wanting to learn more about the universe and the characters. Also the music, Jesus, don't get me started. From the floor themes to any Millie song, I'm sure you've heard something from this game before without realizing it. This 2 for 2 record when it came to games would soon become 3 for 3 with the release of Limbus Company in 2023. Okay, maybe not immediately. The game had very obvious problems from the get-go, most notably of which was the fact that it was gacha. Ugh, the word causes a deep stirring in my loins, and not the good kind. If you've been paying attention, you'll have noticed that Project Moon was known for its story-driven single-player games, not gacha. There is a difference. When the factorial slop of gacha is so prevalent with its countless little practices made to waste both your time and your money, the caution the fanbase had towards Project Moon's new game was warranted. But it was all ultimately for naught, because this game managed to take the things that made all the previous games so good and packaged it into a simple enough format to be enjoyed by the casual audience that preside within this precarious genre. And if you play the game for longer than an hour, you realize very quickly that Project Moon loves you. Yes, you heard me! Kim Ji-hoon specifically thanks you for playing Limbus Company. Glory be to Limbus Company, glory be to Project Moon, and in the words of our cute CEO himself, may he attain wealth and fame almighty. And if you can't tell, that's at least how it feels to be part of the community of this game at times. We want it to succeed, we want people to play it, and we want it to get even bigger and even better with every update that cycles through. Can it
Hear me out. I want you to take everything that he just said, and I want you to think about any other game. I have heard that exact sentiment with Destiny 2 for years, right? And yes, while they're different genres, how many times have you heard someone say Destiny 2 is almost good? How many times have you heard someone say a game that they're playing is just, it's so almost there. It's so almost good. And they kind of stick with it whether they enjoy the game or not, right? I think that taking this half of the statement in a vacuum is kind of a dangerous mentality to have when specifically dealing with games that don't respect your time and don't really respect you as a person, right? You are pay pig. You will pay us, right? You see you next update. I don't know, whether you look at something like Genshin, whether you look at another gacha game, whether you look at something you play like a yearly release of Call of Duty that is just always bug-filled and riddled with cheaters, right? Helldivers, when they decide to do we're going to nerf everything into the ground, then we're going to buff everything, then we're going to have our Killzone collab where, something pay to win, well, we're going to redact this now, and it's just so much. Like, I would much rather do anything else at that point. I think there's a healthy boundary between... I think that he's showcasing the healthy boundary, though, to clarify, right? Because there's a healthy boundary between this game is so almost good and you actively being in a worse state for playing it, and outlining, hey, I enjoy this product. This is why I enjoy it, right? Being able to clarify why they enjoy the game, why they enjoy the product, and then having criticisms on it's so almost there, but it could be better, right? I think that there's two halves to this greater whole.
be predatory? Sure. Is it overtly predatory? No, I would say not at all. In fact, I would go so far as to say that despite Project Moon's motto being this big, bold, almost laughably authentic view of the CEO's vision, they really don't know how to make money. And the times where they do try to drain your wallets, they outright say it. For the anime, for the 3D action RPG, I give my wallet unto you, my cute CEO. Power creep? Yeah, sure. But the units are so easy to get, whether by the decent rates or simply by farming the repeatable roguelike mode mirror dungeons, that you're able to basically get any character you want in the game for free. No.
But I mean, like, power creep, I don't know. I think power creep, when it's taken to the extreme, yes, absolutely, that's an issue. But any game is going to have power creep, even if you have a pretty, linear game in regards to, we're going to have, Pokemon TCG levels of, interplay, right? Eventually that HP stat is not going to max out at 100 anymore. It's going to max out at 120. It'll max out at 140, 150, 170, right? 200, 220. And then you go up to, now we're breaking the 250, 300 mark, right? 350, 360, right? And, then the attacks, subsequently as well are going to be, you'll have attacks hitting for, they're going to become stronger, right? You're going to be hitting for 60 damage. You'll be hitting for 120 damage. You'll be hitting for 240. You'll be hitting for like, depending, like 250, but you can only use this once per turn, right? Like the next turn you have to recharge, right? Hyper beam status, right? Like power creep isn't inevitable, and that's actually why games like Magic the Gathering figured out long ago. As much as I don't like rotation block formats, I really don't. Is I feel that I get less value in the long run because of buying into a standard block. But that's why Magic the Gathering did a rotation system. Like, that's why you'll have certain in-game, certain regulations. Why you'll, like, I don't know. Power creep is such an interesting thing to discuss because it's just a fact of game design. You will deal with power creep. It will be a thing in some way, shape, or form. It's how you handle it. And does the game accommodate this power creep? Sure, you can get absolutely god tier weapons, but is the game throwing you god tier challenges? Or is it just going to be a pay to win arbitrary progression system, right? Those are all things to consider.
RNG reliant time gated artifact system, no smorgasbord mishmash of collectibles, no going to pity every single time, and a story that is good. Amazing. In fact, absolute
amazing.
Goddamn cinema. And this is why I made the distinction between a gacha game and a single player game. Because while many
Did Genshin come out before Breath of the Wild, actually? Because I almost wonder if passing off would actually matter there. Impact, release. 2020 versus Breath of the Wild. I think that was like 2017. Yeah, it's 2017. I don't know, like, because I look at the Monster Hunter. Was it Monster Hunter Generations 3? Yeah, no, it's not Monster Hunter Generations 3. Monster Hunter Switch 2. Like, I look at the new Monster Hunter game as of recording this that's coming out. And I mean, I literally cannot distinguish the difference between Monster Hunter whatever game and Monster Hunter Stories 3. I literally can't differentiate that between that and Breath of the Wild. So it's wild considering modern AAA and quadruple A tendencies, especially in regards to patenting mechanics, patenting art styles, etc., right? And definitely being litigious, right? Openly litigious. That something like Monster Hunter Stories 3 is just not seen as passing off. I'm being very, like, this is a repeat point I've brought up because, like, it feels like, I don't know, that's weird. And also, I mean, has Nintendo gone after Hoyo for potential passing off, right? I don't know. Like, it's such a weird state to live in, the modern AAA, quadruple A market.
Gacha games can suffer from character irrelevance, convoluted nouns you need to remember, bloated dialogue, and in-your-face unit shilling. Limbus Company draws from its roots as a narrative-driven experience and provides you simply with an excellent story-based game. There are levels to this, right? To combat character irrelevance, the main cast consists of 12 sinners, including the main character, their guide, Virgilius, and his weird monochrome adopted daughter, Charon. I think she's autistic. Also, she drives a Limbus and is my favorite character. You pull for versions of these characters from alternate universes, and each sinner remains a mainstay in every bit of story that you get. When it comes to Nounitis, which, if you aren't familiar, is a common problem in original fictional worlds, normally diagnosed in Harry Potter notebooks of overzealous 15-year-olds who think making fake words that sound cool equals good world building.
I mean, honestly, I hadn't actually come across the concept before, but once it's explained, no, this makes complete sense.
No, I'm not talking from personal experience. Seriously, I was always more of an Undertale kid. In fact, to prove this, let me give you a rundown of the setting in under a minute. People live in the city. Non-people live outside in the outskirts. Districts compose the city, which are all named after a letter. Each district contains a nest, which is the city proper, and the back streets, which are the slums. Each nest has a wing, which is a mega corporation that supports the city as a whole with its unique technology called a singularity. The leading body of the city is known as the head, which is comprised of districts A, B, and C, no relation. Nobody really knows anything about them. You're not supposed to. People can hire certain others to fix their problems, called fixers. Fixers can be part of offices, which are individually owned businesses, or associations, which are massive scale companies in their own right, of which which there are 12, all named after a number. Fixes themselves are also graded by numbers, going from grade 9 to grade 1, with only the most legendary fixes being awarded a color, of which there can only be one per color at any given time. Also, abnormalities are monsters extracted from the mind, which were invented by L-Corp. Distortions are people who turn into monsters because of their feelings, which was also L-Corp's fault, with ego being the result of preventing your own distortion through sheer force of will. There's also another type extracted from abnormalities, taking on their properties instead of being unique to you. These concepts are all kind of linked. And time! How'd I do? I wrote that.
Now I know how people feel when I talk about Legend of the Five Rings. No, it makes a lot of sense. Like, and I'm sure, like, actually pacing the progression and being able to immerse yourself in the world is absolutely going to be instrumental into not only learning but retaining the information as well.
Knowing how long it'd take to say it also, that's pretty good. Hopefully you got all that, and if you still think that's confusing, I challenge you to do the same with your favorite gacha game and still make it comprehensive. What Limbus does is make all the keywords commonly used ones, so you can intuit their meaning and form a proper mental connection between the word and the position in the setting. The physical world makes use of bird imagery and letters, the human system works on numbers and colors, not foolproof, but you get what I mean. The worst—
I mean, honestly, it makes sense, right? It tries to keep logic in there, right? It tries to streamline itself. And I mean, look at this from like a game design perspective in Dark Souls, right? Like, why do the dark wraiths at Farron Keep, why do they make sense there, right? Why do you not find a dark wraith in, you know, the catacombs of Karthus, right? But why do you find different names of catacombs? Like how it tells a comprehensive story. I mean, I think that's it's not necessarily a one-to-one, right? But like being able to reinforce logic and from the story it's telling, have it make sense to you. I think that's definitely a W in terms of storytelling, in my opinion.
Gets is with Lobotomy Corporation with things like enkephalin and Kagito, various other SCP-style jargon, but that's isolated over there and doesn't much affect Limbus. Units also don't need to be shilled for the same reason there isn't character irrelevance. Units you pull for will be tied to the main cast through their ID. See what I mean about keywords? Meaning there'll never be a character that seems to only be in the story so that the company can make you pay for them. Rather, the character from the story just so happens to be one you can pay for.
Sure.
Bloated dialogue? Well, it depends on your definition. If we're talking about Kanto 4, and I'll get into this in my next section where I talk about why I think this game probably isn't as big as it deserves. Is the dialogue bloated? No. It flows like a conversation. Characters stay true to their development or current temperament. Character interactions are through the wazoo, but there is quite a lot of it. Is it needed? I'd say so, yeah, but I know many a person who'd rather it wasn't so verbose or lengthy at times. For example, Kanto 8 is probably the longest Kanto released so far, surpassing that of Kanto 4 easily, yet I don't feel as though it's as long, you know? Especially when you're doing that dungeon in the middle. That whole section was absolutely amazing. It felt like the end of the Kanto itself, despite us only being halfway through. I believe Limbus Company does gacha the right way. Yes, it's a gacha to make money. Yes, it's a little predatory, but at its heart, it's a video game. It's an experience. It's a story. And that comes before the attempts Project Moon makes to rake in the dollars. You can—
So I'm of two minds here in regards to a couple of things. So I'm trying to backtrack. Length is subjective, especially when I talk about how, like, ad reads, right? How I'll talk about how an ad, even though it's 90 seconds, even though it is like lengthwise 90 seconds, feels like 30 seconds, right? Or how an ad's like that was 60 seconds, but that felt like 3 minutes, right? So length is subjective. And it's what you do with the information, right? So just because something is like, you know, X amount of words, right? Or even if you have like something like Wheel of Time, right? Book series, right? Something like certain Wheel of Time books get over like 1,000 pages, right? And you feel every single page sometimes, especially when like Nynaeve is braid tugging and, you know, like spreading and pleating their skirts, and then you go to a completely different plot line dealing with Perrin and Fail, and you just don't really like feel it because you really want to figure out what Rand's doing and what's going on with the Forsaken. I don't remember what the Dark One's followers are called anymore. Point being, right? Like sometimes you just don't care about Padan Fane, but like now you have to go for like 3 chapters of Padan Fane and whatever he's doing. Well, he was usually about 1 chapter. Point being, like then you can read something like, I don't know, like Aragon by Christopher Paolini, and like the book sure is only like 300 pages, but like, I mean, I've breezed through that book a few times, right? Like it feels, you don't feel the 300 pages. It feels like 100 or 150, right? So, and as long as this goes to encapsulate the argument that if it's done well, if you tell the story in a coherent and correct way, or you relay information in, you know, the correct ways, and you appeal to people's ethos, pathos, and logos, right? Like, you begin to not really feel that length. Like, it becomes less of an issue. In regards to gacha games as well, so if there's the understanding that whenever the devs decide, yeah, we're just piecing out, right? Whether that's Genshin Impact or Galia Lost, I'm pretty sure that was Nintendo's big one, right? Used to, keyword past tense. Or, insert gacha game here. Like, I played Naruto Blazing, right? Like, I definitely played in a couple of the Kage Summit tournaments or whatever. The one where, like, Wisdom Madara, the Kage Summit Madara was on banner. Well, not on banner, as the reward. Because I missed the Minato one. But, like, yeah, I got, like, because Android had odd connectivity, iPhone was better. I mean, I was, like, top, like, 3,500. Because of connectivity issues and working at the time, like, I couldn't, like, go as high as I wanted to. I probably could have got top 2,000 maybe. Like, I had Final Valley units and stuff. But that's what leads into, like, at any time, and this is what, once again, Bandai did. Bandai ends up, killed the Naruto CCG, which I enjoyed greatly because they wanted to make Power Rangers the card game which no one remembers. Good financial decision there, Bandai. And then you have Naruto Blazing, and then Naruto Blazing just ends up getting killed because now we're just going to do something else. And it's like, as long as you go in with the understanding that at any point the devs can and will just pull the game, that is something they reserve the right to do. There's no preservation. Like, I think if you still had your account on the phone, I can't because I got a different phone, so I no longer have it. Like, you could still access and see your Naruto Blazing units, but, like, there's no game at that point anymore. And that's, for a person like me, incredibly frustrating. Like, me even hopping onto an MMO like RuneScape or Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft or insert MMO here, right? Or online experience, right? You don't really own anything, right? And as long as, like, that's telegraphed, as long as you make the cognizant decision of, like, I will not own anything, I will buy into the gacha, but none of these units are an actual asset that I own. This is just what I have in the game. Like, yeah, why should anyone, like, fault you if you like gacha games? Personally, after Naruto Blazing shut down, sure, I've spent some money into Genshin, but I can't get into gacha anymore because the one gacha game I wanted to play, they canned. And I personally, as an individual, just don't really want to get invested in another game like that. I think my time and money is much, spent better elsewhere. See, I say that, but then I do, like, buy, like, certain TF2 things, and that's neither here nor there. In any event, I think that the vilification of gacha has a little bit more nuance. Like, it has the asterisk, and people should be reasonably financially responsible, and also making, like, decisions with the understanding that you don't own anything. And as long as you're okay effectively, lighting that dollar bill on fire, right? Like, yes, you're an adult. Go make your own decisions.
Say whatever you want about companies being all inherently evil, but at the very least, when one is authentic and honest, it breeds a kind of respect almost equivalent to loyalty. Because that's what it feels as though Project Moon, the indie video game company, wants, not your wallet. And nothing is more authentic than going live as the CEO of your company with your Vtuber model, playing your own roguelike mode, and feeding your most hated unit to the man-eating Christmas goblins because you regret making him so strong.
I mean, honestly, yeah, that is a power play. Like, can you imagine if, like, Bobby Kotick, I don't think is with Blizzard Activision anymore. Can you imagine, like, Randy Pitchford just, like, actually streaming Borderlands 4 and trying to dismiss its issues? Which, I mean, you guarantee he's just going to tell you to go code your own engine, right? Or, like, any CEO actually playing their game, right? Like, that's just a different level, right? And that's what Helldivers tried to do, where, like, the staff, like, actually played the game, but then the staff is making difficulty changes, and it's like they only play on, like, 4 or something like that, and it's like, get out of here. You have zero understanding how the higher difficulties play, and you're making the experience for people like me who want to consistently play on, like, 9s and 10s, and just makes it just I have opinions. I have words. Like, there are valid reasons why I don't ever want to go back to Helldivers. They lost me for a number of reasons. But that being said, like, it's just come to your own educated conclusion, right? Like, the fact that they are willing to, like, from an objective standpoint, the fact that they are willing to, like, play with the community should be seen as an objective W, right? I can have my criticisms against it. I can have my against the company. I can have my criticisms against the game, right? But at the end of the day, I think it's fair and reasonable to say, no. I mean, I may be biased a certain way. However, like, they do take the W in this aspect, being fair and reasonable.
With all my praise out of the way, I think it's about time I talk about the game's shortcomings, at least when it comes to general popularity and widespread appeal. While I'm very much aware that PM is much more than Limbus Company, it's their most profitable investment, so I'm going to keep the scope limited to that game, if you'll forgive me. I'll keep it simple. Limbus Company doesn't turn heads, for the same reason that Library of Arena didn't turn heads. Despite it being low-key inspired by famous pieces of literature, let's be real, nobody gives an absolute flying fuck about Wuthering Heights, Moby Dick, Crime and Punishment, Damien. What? This is just gay erotica. Oh, wait, that's the Wattpad version. Apparently the real one's not so far off. LobCorp was SCP-inspired, tapping into the immense online presence of the SCP Foundation's community, whether it be the die-hard fans and cult following, or the general knowers, as it were. Limbus Company doesn't have that privilege. Well, unless you count on your fingers the members of your nan's book club. Further expanding on that, the general aesthetic of the game isn't one you'd typically call attractive. Perhaps to a certain audience, you know, but it's not like I'd call Darkest Dungeon, Fear and Hunger, and Wizardry attractive. In contrast to saturated, colorful worlds of other games filled to the brim with glitter, lights, and rainbows, the only set of colors you'll see in Limbus Company are whatever a person's guts look like as they splatter all over your screen.
So this actually, and this is actually a relevant interrupt, harkens back to some things I've been watching by the Critical Drinker. Think like Avatar, not like The Last Airbender, but like James Cameron, Blue People, funny Avatar, right? Like, how much of that movie, I guess both movies, because I haven't seen two, how much of those movies are just visual spectacle, right? Like, Gratz, here's your wide landscapes, and here's the planet of Pandora, and, you know, like, how much of it's just physical spectacle, right? How many, as much as we make fun of Michael Bay movies with, you know, cameras on fidget spinners, right? Like, how much of that is just physical spectacle in Marvel, right? The Star Wars sequel trilogy, you know, if nothing else, how much of that feels like visual spectacle, right? Sure, Genshin Impact could have a, you know, vibrant, colorful game. It could have some cool visual spectacles, like you know, going against whatever the dragon in the first act was. I don't remember, dude. It's been a while since I even picked it up, right? Like, you could have flashy and visual, but what substance is there, right? Like, if it didn't have the visual spectacle, what merit does it stand? What does the game stand on? If the answer is nothing really, is it a quality product? Is it a well-rounded product? At the end of the day, I would argue no, right? Something like this, sure, might not have the same level of, you know, spectacle as something like Genshin Impact or ZZZ specifically, right? Jiggle Physics Simulator has, right? But does it stand on its own 2 feet? If yes, you're already doing better than the competition. And I think that's where people have it backwards. Because, and this is a broad overgeneralization, right? People really don't care for substance as much as they want to be entertained by visual spectacle, which is fine. That becomes a problem when actual genuine works of art are overshadowed and even altered to accommodate visual spectacle, the viewer, right? Like, that's where I start to have problems, and that's where you start to alter and change art to, you know, fit. So it's like me doing certain reaction videos, right? I mean, if this comes out and it gets like 200 views, sure, they got 200 views. Cool. This is literally a Patreon submission, so I honestly write the metrics off as is, right? But like, even in what I do, right? Like, I have to maintain in certain constraints. I have to do certain things to try to push certain metrics, right? And it doesn't necessarily make sense for me to react to, say, a 2-hour dissertation on classical music and even opera and its impact on modern society, right? Or the history of Japanese kabuki theater and how that impacts modern filmmaking, versus watching something funny like TF2 or Pokemon or something thought-provoking about gaming like this, right? Like, it doesn't quite match up, right? So, I don't know. That's my little spiel on that.
Like the setting, the aesthetic is drab and depressing. Grays, whites, and black overpower much of the scenery, and where it doesn't, sterile whites in areas like the nests contribute to the powerful dystopian nature of a divided populace united only in the ways of making one another suffer. And
Weird. Do you mean that it all is designed in a specific way to evoke specific emotions? I guess invoke would be the better word there. weird. It's almost like that's how that's supposed to work.
We're talking about how things look, I can pivot over to the gacha game equivalent of jingling keys in front of your face. Fan service. Limbus has practically zero. In the sexual sense, at least. There's actually a lot of fan service. As in, if you're a fan of the studio's works, you'll like a lot of the plot lines brought up in the game, but Limbus Company isn't exactly the type of video game you'd call Guna fuel. Ugh. I hate that word. Fuck you, Game Grumps. Season 5 perhaps gave us the more risque
That one flew over my head.
IDs in the series in Princess Roger and Kurokoma Ishmael. By risque, I mean she's got her cleavage out, and even then you can count the number of IDs that show even that on your one hand. The others probably bit. Despite having adult themes, Project Moon doesn't really divulge in anything sexually explicit, or even really utilize sex appeal in any way. The main method of dress for all denizens of the city is some form of suit, after all. That's not a bad thing, not really, but when you consider the genre in which Limbus Company has planted its feet in, you can get an idea of why it's kind of negative in some way.
I feel that when we talk about more mature themes, like okay, like if we're gonna have fan service jiggle physics, right? I mean, people are pretty conditioned to that. Even in anime, right? If I watch an anime and it comes out something like Camphor, right? Like, I mean, that's just kind of the media, and that's just kind of how that works, whatever, right? But if we watch an anime and there's excessive red liquids and dismemberment, right? Like, I mean, for me personally, I even as someone who likes Dead Space, right? I don't like the gore. I don't do things like that. And a lot of people as well just choose not to deal with it. Like, I think there's kind of a natural aversion. Like it is art, right? Like, and so the argument comes down to, well, if you watch this in art form, are you supporting it? And it's like, I mean, there's commentaries that happen because of that. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's just art, pixels on a screen. Like, I can also just choose to ignore it, right? Like, this isn't a fantasy setting, fantasy sci-fi, like fictional setting. But I know for me personally, emphasis on anything gory is kind of a deal breaker for me. As I said, it's ironic because I like games like Dead Space. I love games like Resident Evil. Silent Hill has a lot of body horror, right? And there are certain things that I'll engage with, but I do think that there is a limit, and I feel like a hypocrite because I can't correctly define that limit. It's one of those things that I personally just have to like engage with it, if that makes sense. Like, I have to engage with it and determine if it's something that I can't want to physically deal with or not. So I think that could also be something that drives people away. Not necessarily the jiggle physics fan service, but especially if you're dealing with any sort of like body horror, especially if you're dealing with any sort of red paint, if you will. I do think that does become a point of contention for a lot of people. Gears of War, right? Like, people play Halo, but not maybe necessarily Gears of War, right? I know Gears of War 2 was one that I just really had trouble getting into. Especially, because you're chainsawing Locust and the final boss worm at the end, you're chainsawing through it. Like, I don't know, man. Like, one of those things, like, I feel if it's done classy, I'm okay with it. But at a base level, generally, I'm not a fan. But I'm also not going to take someone else's, like, artistic enjoyment out of that, if that makes sense.
Fuel makes our hamster ball turn, and in the absence of it, less people flock inward to keep it rolling. Commonly, the idea of sexy equals bad because popular is used. Well, there's no sexy here. You want to come in and try this out? No? Yeah, that's what I thought. Sex sells. Limbus, arguably, doesn't. Without it, less people are drawn in unless they have prior knowledge of the universe or game. And even when the odd straggler finds their way in, the sheer walls of text you must endeavor do have a habit of making them turn right back around. When your average gacha game might look like this can be a little overwhelming. Boxes
I was about to say, like, the UI itself is already something that's kind of throwing me off.
Of text flying around faster than a crackhead on a fix, coins ding-a-ling-linging, and Wild Hunt Heathcliff cackling like he knows what your search history looks like. Are we sure we're not playing Lobotomy Corporate? I'm sure. What are these things on the bottom? Why are there so many arrows flying around? What do all these statuses mean? God, reading? In my story-driven gacha game? Blah. Project Moon has never made that game super intuitive, let's say. They've always had problems with things being more complicated than they make it out to be, putting emphasis on the wrong things, or outright not explaining particular mechanics. Could you believe I didn't know how to offset guards until halfway through Kanto 4? The answer is yes! You probably could if you know what the tutorial is like, because they make it seem more like Candy Crush than anything else. Seriously, resonance is only important for like 2 teams in the entire game. Speaking truthfully, the game is about as hard as it looks, but not as difficult as you think. By that, I mean you just have to read passives, kits, bosses, maybe a bit
just actually play the game and tackle the problem, Fivehead. Actually understand what's in your kit and how to interact with that. You're saying that in a game, it's like a game like Destiny 2, if I want to optimize my damage with, say, I don't know, like bait and switch Cataclysm against something like Oryx and Kingsfall, generally I'm going to have something that's going to be able to pop Oryx as my secondary. Elemental weapon probably going to be something with primary ammunition, maybe swap to something like Succession to be able to ping Oryx's chest, then swap over to Cataclysmic, get that first shot off, bait and switch is now active, and then you just go ham on his core. Or if you're doing something like field prep Whisper of the Worm, right? Like, cool, are you crouching? Does somebody on your team have Darcy? Cool, unload on that man. Like, I want every gun we have to fire on that Taken King. Like, but do you necessarily know this without, like, reading, right? And I think, like, it's a really truncated example. I don't think it matches necessarily one-to-one. But, like, I think there needs to be some sort of normalization, again, of just, like, reading mechanics. And don't get me wrong, I get pissed off when games like Night Rain, specifically. Elden Ring Night Rain pissed me off. I still have that actual episode up on the gaming channel, the first ever one. If I get a tutorial every 5 seconds, like a tutorial that I have to read, like, kindly piss off, right? Like, if I can play the game at, like, okay level, suboptimal level, right? Whatever, right? But when I actually want to go for, like, mastery on the game and understand how the mechanics work and how things interact with each other, Destiny 2, such as, Well of Radiance effing your hunters out of their golden gun radiant, therefore their golden gun will do less damage, right? My issue with that is the game doesn't explicitly explain that to you. That's metagame knowledge. I do have issues with that specifically. But if the game literally tells you through bricks of text, hi, this is how this works, right? You have made it available to the player. The player, if they want to play at a higher level, should be investing the time to do that, right? Like, I'm trying to make it so that it's reasonable for both the casual audience and then the skilled audience, right? The casual audience, is going to be able to come in, play, and then they're going to be able to, like, learn mechanics that I assume are drip fed to them, right? You don't necessarily go in swinging with this on your screen, right? And the skilled players will know exactly how certain mechanics work, right? Like, that should be the expectation. You should be rewarding your players for engaging with your game more. You should be rewarding them for going the extra mile. You should be rewarding them for understanding how the systems work. That's fair and reasonable.
mental maths for Clash Power if you're feeling up to it, or just watch these videos by SU. But if we're at that point, then yes, there probably is a reason why the game is considered a little overwhelming to new players. I will say, people overblow the difficulty of this game to an elitist level at times, but a basic understanding of how clashing and speed works is all it takes to clear the contents of the story. Speaking of the story, let's touch on that. It's long. Not as
So it's the Final Fantasy XIV effect. You can effectively clear, as long as you know what you're doing, yeah, you can clear the story just fine up through Dawn Trail, right? You're definitely going to start hitting some walls of a Holminster Switch and Shadowbringers, Endwalker, Tower of Babel is definitely going to be a little bit of a more difficulty spike again. You hit Dawn Trail, man, you better know how your class works in main story content. But it's like if you do something like Arcadian, or you do something like the O series in Stormblood, right? It's like, yeah, there's more like required of you than basic story content. That's how that works, right? If you want to, like, you know, farm Howling Blade, right? Or even move on to, dare I say, Howling Blade Savage, a fight which I very badly want to do, but know very few people who actually play 14, much less at a high level, right? Like, I know people, don't get me wrong, but it's just, it's timing and getting together and setting time aside to actually learn stuff like that, right? It's scheduling and getting everyone together. It's the D&D effect, right? Like, yeah, you should have to, like, know your class better than the average person. Like, you should be rewarded by going into harder content and even seeing special cutscenes and special soundtracks, right? By knowing that. So this is very evocative of Final Fantasy XIV for me.
Long as, say, Arknights, I think that story's well surpassed the length of the fucking Bible. Hell, I wouldn't even call this story lengthy in general, but it may feel that way because it's not 3D. It doesn't have animations, you aren't going around talking to NPCs, you are playing a visual novel with combat nodes in the place of choices. What gets you through that is the interest hopefully bred through the concept of the universe and a connection to the characters and the will to see their stories and development. It does suffer a little from the gacha game curse of only getting good halfway in, but it hardly takes any time relatively. Kanto 1 suffers from being the first Kanto and so needs to establish character dynamics, villains, stakes, etc. Kanto
Weird. You mean the same issues or some of the same issues I have with Final Fantasy XIV and Realm Reborn, which literally made me almost quit Final Fantasy XIV because of how much a slog it is to get through? Like, let's be honest. Ideally, yeah, you have a big opening chapter. You have a big hook, right? But sometimes you're just not going to have a big hook. And if it doesn't have that big a hook, or if it doesn't have that staying power, what comes after that, right? You have to go through a Realm Reborn to understand dynamics that happen for Shadowbringers and Endwalker. You just have to do that, right? Yes, you can skip. I think that it's a malinvestment to do that if you're, trying to go through the story. If it's on an alt, right, or you're on a different data center, sure, right? But, like, you have to go through, concerning hobbits, setting up, why Frodo does certain things, the dynamic of Bilbo, before you can get to, the Two Towers and you're getting to the Battle of the Hornburg at Helm's Deep, right? Like, you sequence things correctly and you have it build upon each other. And absolutely, there's people, artists, studios, teams that'll do it better, and there's some that'll do it worse, right? And then you'll see, like, directors and writers, right, who have specific styles in which they do things, right? Where someone like Rian Johnson, I guess, prides himself on making controversial films, and he has certain isms about him. J.J. Abrams has certain isms about him. Michael Bay has certain isms about him, right? And then you have, Tolkien writes differently than someone like J.K. Rowling. They write something different than Christopher Paolini, right? Like, and then you start to see those styles develop, right? So, I mean, a poor opening act, isn't necessarily... I shouldn't even say poor, right? Like, there are poor opening acts, don't get me wrong. But, like, as long as it does its job and it actually leads to something, like, I'm willing to sit there and slog it out. But, like, you have to, like, lean into it. The content later has to, in some way, shape, or form, justify your ability. It should justify and reward you for spending the time, is what I'm trying to say.
2 suffers because the main focus character doesn't really resolve anything by the end of it, and Kanto 3 is where the game really hits its stride and finds its formula. The sinner must wholly confront their past, face their trauma, and realize themselves by the end of it. If you're a Project Moon fan, you know that this is a recipe for success. Kanto 4 is long, wordy, but emotional. Kanto 5 is hate-filled, aggressive, but hopeful. Kanto 6 is sad, dreary, but resolute. Kanto 7 is cynical, crushing, but uplifting. And Kanto 8 so far is just as amazing as its predecessors. Dare I say, maybe even the best delivered despite its length.
And that's the thing, right? You have to have the setup, right? You can't go into that just right off the bat. Like, you have no point of reference. You have to build up to that. And so it's fine. That's justifiable. The flip side of this argument as well is it reasonable what the game and or story is asking of you? And that's the question you as the gamer, the reader, the person intaking the media has to ask yourself. Is something like in this Kanto 1 or 2, is it justifiable and is it a reasonable ask of your time? And only you are going to really have the answer to that. If you're playing through Final Fantasy XIV or Realm Reborn, is it a reasonable ask for you to go through the slog that is a Realm Reborn, right? A lot of people say no, and a lot of people leave, right? Before they get to Heaven's Word or Stormblood, right? And insert a number of games here, right? And a number of stories here, right? Like, there is some subjectivity into it. Yes, there's objectivity in regards to how something is written. There's objectivity in regards to making a good story, right? Just write good five-head. But there's also subjectivity into, like, is this something that you necessarily resonate with? Is this a genre that you vibe with? Does the story make sense to you? And even if you reach out to other people, right? Because there's things about Destiny's story that I didn't understand until, reached out to a couple people and they kind of explained why Osiris was a whiny little complainer, right? As I'll put it, trying to not swear as much, right? Like why Osiris acted a certain way in Lightfall, right? Dude just woke up. Like, dude had to hit the ground running from, you know, the whole Savathun plot point and being, you know, unconscious for an extended period of time and not having Segura in the light. So yeah, he gets to the Amuna, he's a little fried, right? Like he's having to come to terms with his mortality as well, right? Like certain isms make more sense. And that being said, you could also, you know, hear something like this and still, you know, be diametrically opposed. Like, nah, like Osiris was just, you know, just whiny the entire expansion, right? Like, and that's where some subjectivity comes into play. And if you don't feel that it makes sense, if you don't feel that it's worth your time, you don't have to engage in it.
For a casual audience, what most are looking for isn't an amazing piece of narrative writing. They're more concerned about hype moments and
That is
aura.
true.
Think Solo Leveling beating out Freerun or Apothecary Diaries. Hell, even the new series of Bleach. More relevant, think Wuthering Waves, whose appreciation is admittedly skewed by just how cool Rother is. A majority of people don't want this, they want this. And while that's a-okay and fine diddly-do, it is a little disheartening. And perhaps greater than all those points is this one.
I feel like, as a brief aside, I feel like this is why Final Fantasy XIV hit a lot of notes. Like, don't get me wrong, the story's simplistic and even predictable at times. I mean, going through the story, like, I was able to predict a lot of plot points with it, right? But, like, there is story and emotion tied with visual spectacle. It's why, like, boss fights like Howling Blade are some of my favorite in the entire game, right? Or the Endwalker 6.0 finale of the main story, right? Is one of my favorite moments in gaming ever. Like, you have that emotion and that setup and that payoff in a climactic showdown, right? It has the best of both worlds.
Project Moon has no representation in the West.
Interesting.
Now, let me correct myself. There is representation in the West, just not conventional representation. I'll get to it. Have you ever seen a Limbus Company ad? A Limbus Company sponsor? Maybe once, if you're lucky, like a whisper in the
Hi,
wind.
Fubuki.
Marketing, apparently, isn't Project Moon's strong suit. That much is clear if you ask a casual gacha player if they know what Limbus Company is. I'd give it like a 30-70 shot. This isn't a fair comparison, but I'm gonna make it anyway. I've seen Zhu Yuan's ass enough times on my desktop to make me fear what Google thinks of me as a person. I've seen Faust. Actually, I haven't, because they don't do ads. Not only that, but Limbus is only in Korean. No English dub. People don't want to play it because it's in Korean and only in Korean.
I mean, yeah, that is definitely a barrier for entry, right? It's why, like, if I suddenly started doing all my videos in, like, German or Spanish, it's going to alienate most everyone who watches me, right? Like, sure, there's going to be a niche part of the community who'd, you know, hear me say something along the lines of "Watashi wa Kip desu," right? And they'd be like, okay, yeah, he said his name's Kip, right? Like, be able to go with that, right? But, like, you do alienate certain markets, and this is why localization is a thing, and why you can pay a localization team or, like, a studio or something to actually do it for you. But that also that is also a cost, right? That in itself is a business expense.
Know this because it's the reason I originally didn't play the game. And while it's not an issue for me anymore, I love the Korean voice acting actually. Anime adjacents will have a harder time integrating themselves, which, let's be real, are the main audience for gacha games. Project Moon doesn't push for this game for whatever reason. I wholeheartedly believe Limbus can be the gacha game. Like how Genshin or HSR is the biggest. Like how ZZZ is the goonest. It's hardly predatory, offers probably the most interesting setting in all of gachas period, and feels unique in its themes and storytelling. However, with the lack of pushing, it remains under the Wuthering Waves. Literally, a hidden gem on the...
I mean, this has been what people have told me. Like, Kip, your metrics are the way they are because you really just don't market yourself. I mean, that is true. I also feel, like, just disingenuous if I, like, have all my community posts being, like, going live on the Purple app or, hey, I'm doing this thing, right? Like, I mean, I put, like, in every single description of my video, like, all my socials and stuff, right? Like, reasonably, that should be enough to do whatever I need to do, right? And then, obviously, if people like my takes on gaming or are curious about me playing something like Silent Hill 2, right? Yeah, they'll go to the gaming channel. But that's also not how people work. And even then, I see on YouTube just up-and-coming channel. Like, they'll spam every single time. Like, hi, I have my Patreon. Make sure to support my socials here, right? And then they get into the video. And it's like, I don't know. I'm weird because that's how you're supposed to do things. Like, that's efficient. But I also don't like doing those things. Like, my inevitable goal is just to get, like, you know, daily upload 10K a video, right? 10K views, regardless of what it is. I could react to, like, paint drying, right? And that'll get 10K views. Like, that's my inevitable goal. I'm building up to that. After that, sure, whatever. Anything else is extra, right? But I mean, like, the power of marketing and repetition is very powerful. And as someone who, works on YouTube, who tries to do streaming as work as well, right? Like, the marketing is such a huge thing.
Cusp of being revealed. But this lack of clear representation has found a crack in the wall, a glitch in the system. One could say a hidden pipeline. The Roblox to Limbus Company pipeline is a very real thing.
Amazing.
Let's talk about it. Roblox is a site where players create their own games for other players to enjoy. Marketed more so towards kids, it's a platform powered by the players, sort of like Steam or Itch.io with a more personal twist and many...
I'm going to be honest. I have such a poor opinion on Roblox. Like, I will definitely make my bias very transparent right off the rip. Like, I have such a poor opinion of it because of what has been let slide on the platform.
Or limitations. And Groom, allow me to emphasize for effect. This is a platform where users are entirely responsible for other users' experiences. Despite Roblox being primarily for children, there exists many a community of older Roblox players who've cultivated a fair few games for a more developed audience. Roleplay groups with your favorite anime, show, or interest. Closed community games that require you to know a guy who knows a guy so you get to be a grunt in another person's story. Complex games, complete with high-octane parry-based fighting, complex deck building, and permadeath mechanics, with whole server-wide PvP wars that destroy your bandwidth to top it all off. All this to say, Project Moon, a studio for a more mature audience, somehow wormed its way into these communities through the odd fan or two. It started maybe with a few tongue-in-cheek references in a game. It grew to adding weapons from Lobotomy Corporation or Library of Arena in another. Then another. Maybe in a game less serious for a younger audience. Then another. Maybe a whole character or two this time. Multiple iterations of the same thing repeated, like IDs from Mirror World spreading further and further, at times being added simply because these things were rad rather than because they liked the source material. At this point, one might ask, why not make a game? Well, they did. Limbus Game, a battleground where you can fight others as your favorite ID. Archived, an MMO-style RPG taking place in the city where you can challenge the library, join an association, make an office, realize your own ego, much like the characters from the games it was based on. People thought, oh, this is cool, I wonder where it's from. And before you knew it, Project Moon had somehow grown to be represented in Roblox, of all places. Sakura Stand, Illusions, Item Asylum, Forsaken, a Dead by Daylight style game and one of the most popular on the platform with over 150 concurrents. Has a skin based on a character from Limbus using a remix of Millie's track. And if the designs weren't enough to make people think it was cool, then the music sure as hell did.
Scream if you love Millie.
It cannot be understated how much influence this kind of representation has had on Limbus Company's popularity. And
I mean, he's correct. Like, this actually feeds into the marketing point very well, because what is this other than just marketing? This is your community is doing your marketing for you. This is like, this is like if somebody like got Kip Reacts as a channel into like, I don't know, some big podcast somewhere where they were discussing React channels, right, or reaction content. And it came out that like, yeah, no, this Kip Reacts guy, he does React content, but I mean, he doubles the length of the video. I don't know how he does it, right? But now suddenly you have ears like, wait a minute, what do you mean this dingus is doubling the length of videos? What do you mean? What are you talking about? Like it's reaction, the funny sit there, add 5 minutes, go ha ha, right? Like that content? Like, and that it is a form of marketing at that point. Just your community's doing it rather than, like paying for an advertiser, billboard, etc.
I know this because I found out about Limbus again from Roblox. Yes, I'm a grown man who still plays Roblox. Get over it. We all do if you grew up at a certain age. It was cool.
I mean, that is true. Like, that is, if you grew up at a certain age, like, that's just kind of like the thing. Like how a lot of us played RuneScape or a lot of us played World of Warcraft. Like, because someone plays Roblox doesn't really say a lot about a person. Like, it's just like, yeah, it's the, just what happens, right? Like, to a certain age, right? I totally get it. As like the game itself, though, I do have a very poor opinion on, and will retain that. Like that's something I'm a little unbudging on. But like, just because you play Roblox doesn't mean I have less of an opinion of you, if that makes sense.
And if you paid attention to what I was saying before, you'll know that is enough. Such representation, however, is a double-edged sword. Obviously, kids ruin everything. Fandoms, communities, games. marriages. They're dumb, easily influenced, unfunny, and most of all, act like they know things they don't. But it's the hand the community was dealt. It didn't help that the Project Moon universe caters to the lowest common denominator, aka power scalers with the very existence of fixes. But, as I said earlier, the keywords are easy to understand, and the concepts are grim. That is, interesting at a base level. The trickle-down effect of an intended audience combined with a bit of reproduction and a very lucky inclusion and subsequent boom of a game on a children's platform has allowed Limbus Company to be contracted with a very severe case of BAFPUMS, baby's first problematic piece of media syndrome. There, we'll workshop it. Thus, the gatekeeping began, the community became more obnoxious, which, let's be real, you all were already, and a bad rep started to be guarded. We were, after all, refugees from Roblox. Not the greatest tag, I'll say. At least the memes got better. And yet, despite this double-edged sword, I could never really condemn my brethren because, in the end, we were what the community needed. We were the glue. No, we were the representation. Word of mouth. Younger fans, like it or not, are more zealous. They make for good cult material, perhaps to a detriment at times, but if Project Moon wasn't going to go the full 9 yards for their game, these ones sure will. They'll badger, they'll annoy, they'll backseat, they'll nitpick, they'll wrongly quote, they'll shill this game, and I'm pretty sure half of them have never even played it. Should they even know about the game in the first place? Well, you know, but how are we gonna stop them? And that's sort of what I want to get at. Attention is only good for the community. I talked about sponsors. Well, Project Moon actually did sponsor someone. Shirakami Fubuki from Hololive. Yes.
I do love Fubuki. Fubuki's great.
That one. In terms of representation, popular VTubers like Himemiya Rei and to a lesser extent Tenma Miami are stalwart bastions for the Project Moon games. Forgoing the facade of a pixelated visage, Lakari, notorious Blue Archive fan, played through all of Lobotomy Corporation, God rest his soul, and Library of Arena to upwards of 2,000 concurrent. Genazad played all the way through to Kanto 7 as of writing this video to nearly the same amount. And hate him or absolutely despise him, Tectone, the bold, angry Genshin demon from the year 2021, punished all Limbus Company fans with his presence as he rose from hell to face us. Thank God he only played until Kanto 4. And I'll say it again, this is only good for the growth of the community, to get the global recognition I feel like we all think it deserves.
But here's the thing, though, because the same argument could be made about like fan bases like Warhammer, could be made about things that I've been in, like Legend of the Five Rings, L5R. Fantasy Flight owns that at this point. They own the rights to that. But that being said, I mean, it's I don't even touch Warhammer anymore, if I'm being honest. Like, I'll talk about it. I'll probably play something like Dark Tide or like Space Marine 2. But especially because of my reception that how the community received me as someone who clarified time and time again that I'm literally going in here to learn. I don't want to change stuff. And then Games Workshop turning around and changing things like retconning the Terminus Decree, number of continuous decisions. It's just so much to take in. And it's like, nah, you guys get to deal with this, right? So it's the community being defensive ends up just really only hurting themselves more, which is really sad to see. Because, like, I mean, they're clearly not getting no quarter from Games Workshop, right? They're clearly, especially when it's like, the Terminus Decree is this now. Insert lore change here, something Star Child lore confirmed, right? Like, things that I genuinely don't have enough really knowledge about, if I'm being honest. But as a new person, it really is just like, you see the community being defensive and rabid. You see, even if it's just parts of it, right? Even if it's the most vocal minority, right? Like, yeah, there's people I'll talk about 40K with, but like, yeah, there's a reason I moved away from content, in addition to Games Workshop getting very litigious on really anyone, including Battletech creators, right? Actual legal action. And then you see Games Workshop, how they just seem to hate their fans, and they proceed to, like, just change stuff and do a lot of, like, world-shattering, like, changes and revealing things like the Terminus Decree. And it's just like, why do I want to associate with this? So how this relates to the subject at hand is you'll have, those parts of the community that are just rabid and, like, scare people off. And then you'll have, like I said, like, by the video's own admission, right? Like, how the company caters to the power scalers, and that, that can determine buffs and nerfs, right? And it's like, it leads into the people who just want to enjoy the game, the people who want to learn, are ousted by both the vocal minority and even the company, depending on which direction they go, if they just buff and nerf stuff, right? A bunch of people left Helldivers when they did the big Omni nerf, right? The 2 rounds of nerfs, right? Like, that will just scare people off. That will just have people leave. So, I think there's some comparisons to draw there, and I think there's some commentary to be said as well.
I recall the second anniversary when I first revised this script, and I remember feeling disappointed. There was no massive marketing push, there was no big banner to bring people in, just two pretty cool IDs and a billboard in Akihabara. It's clear that Kim Ji-hoon cares
big.
a lot about the people who like his games and his universe. From their humble start to the multiple times where he feels as though he's let down his community, stemming from as early as the translator scam incident from LobCorp, he seems to want to take things slow and easy now. He cares so much that it even negatively affects Limbus Company, backtracking on a much-needed nerf to an ID that the testing team sloppily allowed to deal 400 single-target true damage minimum per turn. Unprecedented. Even when the compensation was full refunds to anyone who spent on the banner, 1.5 IDs of your choosing, a guaranteed 3-star 10-pull ticket, and you got to keep the unit.
I mean, when have you seen another Gacha game do this? When have you seen like a game like, and not that it's Gacha, when have you seen a game like Destiny go down because they have to do impromptu maintenance, kick you out of a raid? Do they give you any silver? Do they give you anything? No. What other Gacha game? Genshin, ZZZ, HSR, Wuwa, right? What other game have you seen do this? That speaks a lot to integrity. That speaks a lot to just accountability and responsibility and the character of this man. That speaks volumes.
Still backtracked when people outraged. He apologized profusely, despite these units in this game costing infinitely less comparative to games like Genshin or Wuwa, because I guess even the game that still puts the story first will be treated as a gacha at the end of the day. People saw it as him going back on his word to the community with regard to the Ring Sang nerfs, another OP unit from the start of the game, and he prioritized that bond with his fans over the health of the game itself. Mouse truly thrust into the light that Project Moon's biggest strength and their biggest curse are their fans.
Yep.
Even so,
that is, I actually had someone pop onto stream last night because I've made a couple announcements about this recently. Very specifically, my Fat Electrician reactions I think are the worst reactions I've ever done. Like all 100 something of them, I think they're trash. But I consistently will have people who only seem to find me through my Fat Electrician reactions. So, and then I try to redact them. And then it makes people upset, right? And it makes people sad. And like, because there are people who do gain value out of it, right? And it's wrong to kind of collectively punish anyone who wants to watch the video by like just removing them. But then again, it is one of those things where like I watch as like I make all 100 videos available again and my metrics tank again. And it's like, I could have, I told you this from a mile away, but it feels like I'm trapped. And then despite saying, don't talk to me about them again, please don't bring them up again, I'll have someone who shows up on the Funny Purple app and they're just like, hi, we've been watching your Fat Electrician reactions. And I'm like, what do you do at that point? So I from what I do, I can empathize with the creator on this point. Like I can empathize with that. I can understand, you know, maybe wanting to do a thing or trying your best, but your constituents get upset at certain things. And then you feel obligated to backtrack. Like I have a lot of empathy for this. I can sympathize. Yes, two different concepts, right? Like, yeah, no, I understand this on a deeper level.
We, as fans, still want to see this game grow and succeed. If Project Moon wants to take it slow with marketing and publicity and everything else, well, the people will take it into their own hands, on accident or otherwise, even if it garners a certain label at this point. And it is growing. It's about twice as popular as when I first drafted this script in early January, but one does have to wonder what that means for the future of the game. Much like the message of their games, it is now up to the people. The seeds have been sown, and it is up to us to help them bloom.
I like it. That was a pretty good conclusion. I liked that.
Man,
that was cute.
Cheesy way to win this video.
It was.
Bye-bye!
Like, it was cheesy, but it was fine. I mean, like, I don't know. This is one of those, like, especially if it's like Warframe where you technically can get anything and everything, right, for free. Like, obviously you have to put in the work. Obviously, you know, you have to play the game, right? Play the game if you want the thing, Fivehead, right? Or you could just use credit card no jutsu, right? Like, but the fact that there's an option just sets it above, you know, above others, especially in the same industry of gacha, right? Like, this is unthinkable in certain games, right? Sure, you get an X amount of Prima Gems in, like, what do you call it? In Genshin, but, like, after a certain period of time, it's just like, nah, just run that credit card. Just go for that, you know, see whatever Raiden or see whatever Farina, right? So I think this showcased a certain integrity, honesty, and accountability from the creator of this game. I think this is honestly a really good video. Like, this is something that I would not have reacted to offhand, other than, you know, obviously like, hey, Kip, I'm a Patreon subscriber. You want to do those recommendations? Which, yeah, no, I mean, totally makes sense, right? So I mean, this video could get like 200 views. I think that this was really good. I thought this was honestly a really good reaction. I definitely padded out the runtime. It's definitely about 2 times the length of the original, but like, I think there was a lot to say. I think there's a lot to analyze with this. I think that going into a subject completely blind and having some like interplay and being able to like my Fat Electrician reactions going into that final part and how I feel about them versus comparing and contrasting them to how he must feel, you know, with some of these nerfs and redactions and stuff, right? Like having that, understanding there. I think this is a really good piece, though. So, as always, links will be in the description down below. I thought this was honestly really good. I think that this is easily 100,000 subscriber content material. Like, wild to me that man is only at 18k subs. I thought this was really good. But thank you for making this video. This was honestly really awesome to get a glimpse into this. This is something that, I would probably free to play this all the way through if I ever got around to it. But I'm already playing multiple MMOs and doing multiple long-form stuff on the gaming channel, like Lord of the Rings Online. But yeah, this is something that, I would spend time into. I would be willing to put time into this if I went into this. Thank you for watching. Really do appreciate it. I will see you in the next one.